Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Masks Off. I'm Kim.
And I'm Tia.
And today we have Carrie with us. But before we get started in introducing Carrie, I'm going to start with our quote as we normally do. So the quote for today is, "True love does not condone selfishness, but rather aims for mutual growth. With conscious relationship, growth and personal transformation are the primary focus." And I'm going to try not to, I apologize if I'm butchering the name, but we think it's by Katya Ki. So we'll go with that. So welcome, Carrie. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you guys.
Yes, Yay. We are too. We are too. And so if you want to share with all of our listeners a little bit about your bio, and then also share with them about your relationship program and your intuitive sessions. And also you are working on co-authoring a second book, which is on conscious education, which I'm super excited about because I was an educator before I had kids. So I'm really super excited to hear about that. And just tell us about yourself in your own words.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm Carrie Jeroslow. I am an intuitive, an author, and a relationship coach. I love coaching relationships because we are in relationship with everything and everyone, including ourselves. And so when we look at how we relate to people, and I love this conversation of conscious relationships, our relationships are so fulfilling. And so, I help people in my relationship program go from heartbreak to soulmate is what I say. It's really recovering from heartbreak and then preparing oneself to meet that soul connection, that soulmate, whether it is a lover or a friend or your child, or an animal. It is just understanding really what's going on within, because that's where everything starts. That's the secret. What I say is I share the secrets to finding and maintaining fulfilling conscious relationships. And the secret really starts with yourself. I know this because that is how I traveled. That is the path that I traveled on after my divorce back in, I think it was 2004. And I had been on that path for a while, but really never seemed to create or be able to have successful relationships. And when I finally found myself faced with a divorce that was not of my choosing, he wanted to break up with me, which is the name of my book, Why Do They Always Break Up With Me? I had to go into it. It was like I was at this fork in the road. I'm either going to turn off my heart forever, or I'm going to figure this out. And something within me said, just go into it one more time. And that's when I connected with an energy healer. And that was the missing link, because it all stemmed from my parents' divorce when I was 12, 13. And I had done a lot of talk therapy and all that, traditional therapy, but it didn't get what was like in those nooks and crannies. I was still creating these really, unsuccessful relationships. Unsuccessful is very much a body word. It's like it ended in divorce, but it was very successful in helping me heal. And so I went into that process for 3 months. And by the end of it, I had healed the relationship with my father. And my relationships with men were completely different from that moment forward up until this moment. And I met my husband. We had known each other through our jobs, but we were in different cities. And so he came to my city, we met, we got together. We're about 15 years into it with 2 kids. And really the thing that has made our relationship work. It's not always, relationships reflect the deepest unhealed parts of ourselves, but because we both are very much into self-growth, which is what you just talked about in that quote, and consciously being aware of what's going on, that's how we've gotten 15 years and really going strong with our 2 kids. And so, yeah, that's basically, you know, my story. But the book I wrote was Why Do They Always Break Up With Me? So I had been on this spiritual journey since 1992. I went to New York City. I worked in the arts. I was a casting director. But I was like in awe of yoga and all things that I never knew growing up, all things that were non-physical. And it opened my just mind up to what was there. And so I started on this path, but it took me so long. There was no Google, there was no internet really at that point, right? It was dial-up AOL. And so I had to really find my way. So my book, Why Do They Always Break Up With Me, condenses all of the pieces that I feel I use to heal from, you know, always being broken up with to my soulmate. And so that's that book. And I do a relationship course around it. And that relationship course weaves in a lot of the energetic part of it that I talk about in my book, but I actually do that one-on-one with people, which is where I get the most results and people really feel the most healing occurs. And then my new book is A New Paradigm of Education, which I'm psyched about. So I have 2 kids now, and you know, the school system, the traditional school system, they're very spirited, very aware, very creative. And my oldest had a really hard time in kindergarten. And then from a really like an intention I set out in the universe, a little Montessori school opened up in his 1st grade year, and it has transformed his life. And he's now in 7th grade. He loves learning. He loves school. And so this came into my sphere. And so I'm co-authoring it. So it means that I'm writing a chapter in this book about what I feel is important, which is the energetics, is an energetic education, NQ, spiritual education.
Ooh, I love that. NQ.
ENQ.
That's amazing.
Can you say more about that? I'm not sure what that is. And for anyone else.
Absolutely. So we talk about IQ, right? To me, that's all of the subjects of math, you know, reading, geography, whatever. And then, you know, EQ has really been talked about, the emotional intelligence. How do we teach compassion and caring and all that kind of stuff? The part that I teach my kids, and I would love to see in education, is the spiritual and not religious, but energetic intelligence, knowing that we are more than our physical bodies, teaching children how to go within, how to quiet their minds in the way that children can, very different than adults, teaching them that they create their reality through their thoughts. My kids have a vision board. They, you know, we've made a vision board, and I've taught them how to manifest, that we are not only body, but we are energy, and what that means, and how we can use energy to mold and create the kind of world that we want to see, how our thoughts create our reality. So if we're thinking, this is really hard, I don't want to do this, that's what we're going to experience. But if we allow ourselves to accept those feelings and choose to think another way about it, we experience a different experience. And so teaching that from a very young age, and then also really taking responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings. I feel like that is really one of the cornerstones of a conscious relationship. And if we teach that at a very young level, instead of, oh, that person did that to me, I ask my kids, let's look at why that might have come up, why that might have happened. And so teaching that from a very young age just creates a different way to go into the world and to see the world.
That's absolutely beautiful. And can you imagine what our world would look like if the educational system started to adopt that and change from the old paradigm? Like the old paradigm is just so archaic. It's just so outdated to just teach the 3 R's. So I totally get it. I love that. Just more and more people I feel need to be doing that. So that's awesome. And we could have a whole separate podcast on education for sure. Or maybe we'll loop back around to it and intertwine it. But let's talk about the conscious relationship, because you just mentioned that the one cornerstone of it. So how do you define a
Mhm.
conscious relationship, and what are those either pillars or cornerstones to that?
So I believe that if we all adopted these, I'm just going to say this is such a bold claim, but I really do believe that we would heal humanity if we all learned how to consciously relate, because
Totally.
conscious relating starts with this. I am an energetic spiritual being having a physical experience. So everything I bring into my life is helping me evolve on that path. Okay. So we all come in, I believe, to the body with things to learn. And and our relationships are gifts because they mirror and reflect what is unhealed within me. So taking responsibility, really, and I say conscious responsibility. So for example, if I get triggered by someone, that is for me to come into what I say my little corner, which is my yoga mat. That's like the place I go within. I sit there and I say, what am I wanting to learn from this experience?
Mm-hmm.
The unconscious dialogue is that person did something really horrible to me. It's their fault, and my life would be better if they weren't in it, or if that didn't happen. Instead, I pull back. I say, okay, this is happening for a reason. What am I wanting to look at? I go within. I ask the question. If I don't know, I turn it over to whatever I think is bigger than me. For me, I say universe, source, creator, whatever it is, God, and ask for communication. I quiet my mind in the ways that I do, which is not sitting doing nothing. For me, I actually meditate by sweeping. Like that's a really symbolic thing for me, or going on a walk or something to just allow my mind to just go away for a minute.
So can I interrupt there for 1 second? Because I love what you're saying. And I do the same. Tia does the same. Many of the people that we know that are on this path do the same and are really, really good at going inward. So, but there's people that are not on the path and don't even have a clue or aren't even tuned into that pathway of going inward. Or, for example, with my kids, when I sometimes tell them, try to teach, like go inward, there's a resistance. So like, what do you then do? Is it only for the people who are on the path?
No.
Okay.
So kids, I think kids and adults are different, and yet sometimes they can be similar. For adults, where I start with them is some kind of a self-care practice. So that can be anything. It doesn't have to be, it could be, if they really love to run, it could be running. If they love to play tennis, it could just be getting on a tennis court and hitting balls, something that is very self-care. So I'll ask them, I have a freebie. You can go on my website and I'll send you a freebie of how to create a maintainable, practical daily self-care practice, because I believe that it is more cumulative to do it every single day. I started that when my kids were 7 and 3, and I was completely lost. I had no time to go inward. I didn't even remember how. And I had been doing it for a long time, but I was so lost. And so I decided that I was going to get on my mat every day for 3 sun salutations. If you don't know yoga, that takes 3 minutes. That was all I could commit. But I'm in my 5th year. I'm on my 1,700th day of doing yoga, at least 3 sun salutations every day. And so some kind of coming up with some kind of way that you can feel good and start to, have moments of quieting the mind and paying attention to the thoughts that come up. So that's number 1. With children, children, at least my children, I don't really have quiet children. They're very creative. And so my oldest, in fact, his mind is going at such a fast pace, such a fast pace. He hates mindfulness in school. So what are the things that quiet his mind? I ask him a lot of questions. I just say, what's going on today? How are you feeling? What in your day made you feel grateful? You know, I talk a lot about gratitude. Gratitude is a way to go inward and kind of start to learn what feels good. So journaling is a great thing, but you know, I've never been a huge journaler. I have my days with it, but it's just not something, I don't know why it's not something that I do a lot. I like to help people think out of the box with self-care. And so self-care for adults, that's really important. For children, it's kind of like when I'm aware, I can feel when I'm pushing too hard, or like when I get right up to that point where it's like, okay, they're gone, they've gone away from me. But I also do like to push a little bit. There was a great questionnaire that I found online for kids every day. You know, what are you grateful for? What happened today that made you proud? Those kind of questions to just get them in touch with what's going on underneath everything. So hopefully that answered your question as a place to start. People have to want to do it. You know, people have to kind of, I think, if you have never been on this path, you have to want something better more than you want what is current.
That was my question. That's what I was really trying to get at, is because so then if, say, like, I am conscious, I definitely go inward. I'm such an introspective person by nature. So that's who I am. But some of the people in my life are not and don't have any interest or desire to.
Mm-hmm.
So can I then have a conscious relationship with them?
Absolutely. Yes. Because so this is the story with my dad, right? So my dad and my mom got divorced. My dad had an affair when I was 12, and it was very controversial and it's like I went from what seemingly from a 12-year-old's perspective, a very peaceful house to a very conflict-filled house, right? And so throughout that whole, you know, teenage years, early adult, I always wanted my dad to be something that he wasn't. Okay. There was just no way. I always wanted him to say certain things to me. And I blamed him for my failed relationships. It was the moment that I took the blame off of him for where I was. And I said, what about the situation has served me? Now, I needed time and space from the 12-year-old me to see that divorce made me a very independent woman, moved to New York City, followed my dreams, was, you know, had a really amazing job in the arts that people said were, you know, you would never do. And in fact, my dad would always say, I don't think you should do that. And that was always my motivation to be like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to show you. Right. So anyway, so I got to that point. I took the blame off of him and I became grateful for that experience. I went into it consciously. I took the responsibility for it being the perfect thing that happened on my path. And you know what happened? My dad came out to Las Vegas. That's where I was going through my divorce. I lived there. And we sat in a car for 2 hours. And he said all the things I wanted him to say to me.
Wow.
All of those things. And it had nothing to do with him. It had to do with him. He was reflecting the internal wound that was going on within me. And when I took responsibility and healed what was going on within me, he changed. Like, I can't even explain it except to say that it was the representation of people outside of me reflecting what's going on with me. And when I healed that, then my outside world changed.
And I think too, I mean, I'm sure you've had experiences with clients and whatnot where their inside world changes, so they see the world differently, but the other person may not do, the other person in that specific relationship that they were focused on may not do what your dad did. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that the relationship hasn't shifted, because they may still be who they are. They may not meet you and share with you the words that you always wanted to hear, but you're in a different space to realize the separation, that this is their level of consciousness. I am here. So just because they can't provide it to me, I can provide it to myself. And
Absolutely.
so you are so fortunate to have that, but I think it's important for people to know it doesn't always unfold in that way. And that really, like you said, it comes back to you taking responsibility and taking care of ourselves inside.
Yes. And sometimes what happens is those people drop out of our lives.
Right.
Now, when it's family, it can be a little different. And I'll tell you, in the, I guess like I'm 51 now. So in the 16 years since that healing happened, my dad has said things to me that really trigger me. But again, I go inward, and I just say, well, he is who he is. That's the other thing with people around you who choose to stay unconscious. It's okay. It's their free will to do so. It is really okay.
And letting go of those expectations that we have of the other.
And becoming thankful for their presence in your life, because for some reason there is always a gift and always a reason. It may not be a reason that feels great. It may be requiring us to go inside more, which feels more uncomfortable, but it's still a gift.
Right. And the pain is the gift. And we have to shouldn't say we have to, the more we embrace that challenge, that conflict, that disappointment, that pain as a gift, and go within and say, what is within me that still needs to heal?
Exactly. Yes.
Because it's an ongoing process.
It is. And I think just as a consciousness, we're wanting to shift from struggle to ease. And there's so much divisiveness going on, because I really do feel that it reflects the divisiveness going on within ourselves. And that's where the healing is wanting to start. That's where I'm looking at, there's so many different paradigms and structures that are crumbling right now. And it's just, it's giving us that opportunity to dig into the consciousness of who I am, and giving us the choice, really. We all have the choice.
Completely.
So I'm grateful for this conversation, because it is bringing up a lot for me, striking a chord. And I'm glad, Tia, that you mentioned how sometimes when you do change from within, that the outer person or outer world doesn't always. So one of the things that I'm looking at in my own life right now is that, well, my mom passed away almost 2 years ago. My dad is on his way. He has dementia, and he's definitely declined a lot and getting closer and closer to end of life, let's say. And certainly at the point where he can't communicate anymore. And, I went down to see him a couple of weeks ago. That's when I ended up getting this sea lice thing, because I went to see him for his birthday. And I went down there with, I think, an expectation, a hope that somehow I was going to be able to have this deep connection with him, this heart to heart conversation. And it was one that I don't know if I was wanting it for more him or more myself, but it was one that we, very rarely had. Like, just growing up, with both, my family, we didn't have these deep conversations, these heartfelt conversations, right? And for me, the way to connect with a person is heart to heart. Like, just tell me what's in your mind, what's in your heart. I'll share what's in my mind, my heart, and we can connect. Like, that's how I feel connected to people. And so I guess it was my little girl was seeking that when I went to see him. And, at that point, I knew he just couldn't, he didn't even understand the basic things I was asking him, let alone tell me what's in your heart, Dad, So that being said, like, I do all this inner work. He hasn't changed. My mom never changed. I never, was able to have more of a conscious relationship with either one. So, but what you're saying in terms of everything is a gift, right? So one of the things that I know that I'm learning from this is how I want to show up differently with my own kids.
Exactly. Yep.
Beautiful.
Right. So
Yep.
sometimes it's just that it's like, we may not get it with our family of origin or from people in our past, but now I can show up differently. So I do open up the conversation with my kids, whether they walk into it or not. Sometimes they're in the mood to go heart to heart and sometimes not. And that's when you were saying earlier, you feel out your kids. If they're not open, you, okay, back off. So here, open the door. Hey, you want to have a conversation? If they're not there, then I'm like, okay, fine. Whereas, I could easily go into my own woundedness and say, what do you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And put the guilt on and then just create more separation. And there isn't separation, but you know what I'm saying? So I think that is how I have learned to consciously show up. And my kids are 19 and 22. So it's, they're young adults. So, and I think another piece too is alignment, right? Is attuning to them as well. So like, sometimes they don't say certain things, but if I attune to what's underneath their words, there's a way of connecting there as well. So, and again, that's not something I had with my parents or that my parents did for me. So there's the changing of the generational cycle and doing something differently. Am I still sad that I didn't have it with my mom and dad? Yeah, because in some ways, I didn't even know who they were really, because I never knew what was truly in their hearts. And I'm trying to be more of an open book.
One of the aspects that really, really help with this with my clients is the intuitive part of that. That's the part that was missing, because when we try to figure things out in this time and space, something is missing. So I find that when I go intuitively into energy and read what is going on energetically with people's parents, whether they're still in the body or not, we get a lot of answers. And then going past life, if you believe in that, some people do, some people don't. I have seen it over and over and over again, how things in past lives affect what's going on here. And even in things that I've seen it and you're like, well, how can you ever prove it? I can't. But then I learned something about someone that totally like makes sense with everything that I saw. And the other part is I do this technique called Theta Healing. I do an aspect of that, which is an incredible modality, energetic modality that was developed by a woman named Vianna Steibel. She's in Montana right now. And it is the process of the practitioner going into a theta brainwave, connecting with source, and watching downloads, just like a computer, go into the cellular memory of a person in all aspects of themselves. So with people who have never experienced a mother's love, never experienced a father's love, this is how I observe that feeling go in on a cellular level to the person, and also connecting them with their soul family so they feel what it feels like from a soul or a spirit or an angel mother or whatever. And it's an inexplicable healing. Okay, for someone who wants to, yes, there's quantum physics and quantum mechanics that can kind of explain the energetics of it. But when my clients come and say something feels different, I don't know what it is, but I feel different, that's where I know that energy is working. And then they start creating different things. They start seeing opportunities move in. They start feeling different in their body. They start feeling different thoughts coming out, different reactions to people. That's where the energy healing starts to, show that there's something to it. But that's where I would go if you came to me and said, but I don't have any communication with them and I can't get healing in the body, I would start looking on an energetic level to the spirits of them and start looking at what was this lifetime about for the three of you? What was this about? And I find that my clients get a lot of healing from that perspective. And that's like where I shifted hugely from that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Go ahead, Tia. Sorry.
No, I mean, there's so many questions just even with that, which is so intriguing and exciting. It almost seems like with that energy healing, you're bypassing the conscious mind, getting to the layers underneath. And so then there's, because you've shifted the deep root system, which goes back and back and back, right? So it's not just present, it's a whole much more. So then now because that undercurrent has shifted, now their thoughts have shifted without them having, that's where traditional therapy tends to, if we're staying in our conscious mind, it's so stuck.
Yes. Okay. So I want to just share an experience that happened that will will totally show this. So I had my first child. I was 38 years old. Okay. I had a miscarriage right before, but it was a very quick, it was like, I don't know. I just found out I was pregnant. I miscarried. Interestingly enough, my mother miscarried right before me. Okay. So anyway, had him at 38. Then at about 40, my husband and I were like, well, we both have siblings. We'd like to have another. I had a lot of, fears about going back into just that whole, I love him, but he was like not a sleeper, not an eater. It was a very traumatic birth. Like I was in labor for 53 hours and had an emergency C-section. I mean, it was like trauma, right? So cleared a lot of that trauma, did all that work energetically. We started trying at 40, nothing, 41, nothing, 42, nothing. And we made a huge life change from Las Vegas to North Carolina. And it was still not happening. So I got connected with a shaman out in Colorado. I did one session with her. She said, that's interesting. You died in childbirth in this lifetime, but it was your second child. And after that, you vowed to never have a second child. So we need to clear that. Well, I knew I had felt that energetically, like I had died in childbirth, and I almost really did in my first. I mean, that's what all the doctors said, but I made it to the emergency room. Everything was fine. But so she did that clearing. She cleared it. She called back all my soul fragments. She put in some new downloads. And the next month was, okay, it was like, I think February. And we took over this vineyard. We were booking a lot of weddings. October was like the time that I said to my husband, we should not get pregnant now because we have a really busy October and I'm supposed to go to California and marry. I'm an officiant. So I was supposed to marry your cousins in September. So this would not be a good month. I don't even remember having sex with him. I'm sure we did, but I got pregnant. It was right after that healing. Like, to me, that is a physical representation of energetic healing. And my son, sweet Judah Buddha, I call him my Judah Buddha because I had a VBAC with him 7 hours from the time my water broke, and he was in my arms, and he's just kind of been my little Buddha baby. And totally different experience. So that was me doing the healing on my own to heal that trauma, but also that healing from another lifetime. And so that's what I mean, where you can't explain it, but I really we tried temperature, all like the time of the month and everything. And it just didn't happen until that clearing.
That's an amazing example.
And I love too how you had the clearing and your brain was like, can't get pregnant now. So your conscious mind was saying no, but energetically your subconscious, unconscious was like, I know what is best for you. This is the perfect child to come to you right now. He's going to be a Buddha. He's going to just show you so much that you didn't even know was possible. And I love that the big difference between what your brain was telling you at that moment.
And I've never made that connection. So thank you for that. That is yes, absolutely.
Pretty cool. I love it. And how your children are so different. So your relationship with both of them are giving you different healings, different things to go with.
Yes, I like
Beautiful.
to say my oldest has never had a body, like a physical body, because he is just very much, his mind moves a million miles a minute, but he's also super creative. And he used to see spirits. I live in a very old house. He used to see spirits all the time. And I supported that and asked him about it and different messages that he got. My youngest just tells me 1,000 times a day how much he loves me. He just sent me a text while I was working on the weekend. You were my shooting star. I mean, like things like that. It's just, he's so pure love. But he's also feisty because he's a Libra. So he's got the pure love and the feistiness all together. But they both are teaching me very different things. And I tell them all the time, thank you for choosing me as your mommy, for coming into this life and honoring me with this. And, I just believe in you and love you and want them to feel loved. That is one thing that my mother gave to me. My mother really showed me unconditional love and the belief that I can do whatever I want, but not from a pushy place, from a place of allowing me to choose.
Makes a big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
Awesome.
I'm kind of pivoting a little bit in the conscious relationship. We've been talking a lot about family relationships and all that. So when you look to, when you shared your experience in romantic relationships and you mentioned soulmate. So my question is, do you believe there is only one soulmate, or do you believe in multiple soulmates? Because I have my own thoughts on that, but I was curious what you believe.
Oh my gosh. I did a whole month, I think it was February, on social media about soulmates. No, I had a dog. There's so many soulmates. You have a soul family. It's a recognition of, I know you from somewhere. I had a dog that I got in Las Vegas, picked him out at, I think, 2 days old. And he knew, God, I knew that dog. He was like, he would look in my eyes and just, there was a recognition, I say, that was, we've been in each other's lives before. So many soulmates. That's like such a body thing of like, I got to find the one. Yes. There's no truth to it. And even I see my first husband was my soulmate. He really was. He was like, there was so much that was actually good, but the stuff that he taught me and the things that I learned, many times people that we struggle with are our angels in life. That's how I see it. As much as I'm annoyed by them or like, oh my gosh, they are our angels coming to help us see what we need to evolve in this lifetime. So yeah. And you agree. I can tell, Tia.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's a soulmate at all. And I think I've never heard soul family. And I love that because, and each person is here to teach us something different, should we choose. I mean, and I loved how you're talking about your dog, because I don't know, for anyone who's watching the video, Archie walked in front. He is I've had many soul animals, but he's just like.
Go on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
right. You feel that in your.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's the movie industry that really screwed us on the whole. You have to find your soulmate kind of thing. They romanticize
this magic one, and then the illusion that everything's going to be perfect and amazing. It's like,
well, sets us up.
Yes, that's the other thing about relationships is that fallacy that when you meet your soulmate, everything will be perfect. No, that's when the agreements start. And that's why when you can both come to the relationship consciously, like my husband and I, we are highly creative people and we are very in tune with our path. So we trigger each other. There are times that he has come to me and said something and I'm like, that really triggered me. And I'm super aware of my reaction and how triggering comes out in my, words and in my actions. And I just say, now we've gotten to the place after 15 years of, I need to process that and I'll be back. So we don't do that thing of like, we have to go to bed and feel better. Like we don't do that thing. That does not work for us.
That's great.
Sometimes it takes a day or two, or even a week to understand. Like we take the responsibility. We say, what you said triggered me. I don't know why, but I can tell that I'm triggered. I'm going to go off and process it. And now it usually will come together by the next day and say, this is what came up for me. And I know I need to look at this. And I don't have answers yet, but I know this is what is going on.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Do you ever, when you have those conversations, are you able to support each other to deconstruct, or is that something you prefer to do individually?
Sometimes, but we have to get back. I notice with us, we have to get past the initial, we have to get a couple layers into it, and then, and I know specifically my husband's issues, like the things that are like his life triggers that he's really wanting to work through in this lifetime. And so I'm very aware of that and will tend to pull back and let him go there. If he comes to me with that, I will definitely offer, and I've done healing work with him and all that. And he does his own form with me, hey, just want to let you know, seems like, your thoughts are keeping you in this little rabbit hole. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to go figure it out.
Well, and I love that too, because you're open, but you're both also recognizing that we have to come from it within. If you were to just say, oh, I know it's this, most people are going to push back and not accept that. And because true healing comes from within, not from other people's pointing out what is wrong with us. And I say wrong, nothing's wrong with us, but like,
right. We get defensive when someone's like, well, you could be thinking about this a little bit more. You could be looking at that, and both my husband and I happen to be very independent people. We really like our alone time. And with kids, that's challenging because we don't have family around to watch our kids or anything. So, and I find that processing while being around small kids is really hard. It's really hard. Like I lock myself in the bathroom sometimes to be like, mommy needs to go to the bathroom while I sit and, do all like, what's going on? What's happening? What is this triggering? But I love my little space. And again, that's where I talk about coming up with a self-care practice. That's why I call it practice, because you are preparing for those moments so that you can glide in and out of them easier. I know that when I get triggered, I come to my yoga mat, I cry, I plead, I beg, I open myself up. And I've practiced 5 years for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love too, this is going way back to when you first started talking about that, is you developed the beginning of your stepping back into your self-care practice, making it so tiny, so it's accessible. I think so many times what people get stuck in that they think that it has to be this big thing. Self-care is not.
I would always fail. I would always fail. I never got to a yoga. We have a yoga studio. I live in a very small town. Never got to it. No times. I even thinking, oh, I would like to go and sit and do, 60-minute yoga practice. No way. 30 minutes. No way. No, 5 minutes. And that's why, like, I have those 3 steps to create it, because you want to feel successful. Then it started, even when I didn't want to get on my yoga mat, I just made myself get on there and breathe or do a down dog or something. That was my self-care practice. I showed up. And then I got that feeling. Yeah. Yeah. So, just feeling successful with what you're doing will help.
Yeah.
I think we could, I was going to say, I think we could go on for a long time to talk about this, but did you have you were going to say one more thing, Tia, before we maybe wrap up?
I had I mean, I have a lot more questions and we could.
I know. I think we need to
like-
do a part 2 for
Yeah,
sure.
we'll
I
do a
love
part
I
that.
two.
love this.
I'm curious for our listeners, when people come to you with relationship challenges, right? Because you do this beautifully. What's the most common complaint, most common challenge? What do you see most commonly with people that you work with? And what's one way you can maybe help our listeners just to be like, hey, if this is one of your things, this is just one. I mean, you mentioned self-care, but like, I'm curious, because I would imagine there's a lot of common themes you see with people.
Yeah, definitely themes of not feeling enough, not feeling loved, not feeling cared for. Really, all of us just want to feel loved, be loved, and extend love. That is really the core of it all. We want to feel the feelings of love. So either we haven't ever, or we have and we've lost it, or we think we have, or we're skewed with what our belief of love is. And again, that's where self-care comes in. So just email me and get that self-care guide. It's so laid out so easily. It makes it so easy, because when we start showing the love to ourselves and start showing ourselves that we are worthy of spending 5 minutes a day, non-negotiable, then we start to wake up those feelings of love within us.
Yes. And it all comes back to, it starts with ourselves, first and foremost.
Yep.
Should we do the rapid fire questions at the end now?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we always end with our 5 questions when we have a guest. So whatever comes to your mind. So as you know, we're masks off, right? So everyone's wearing their mask. So what is one of the most prominent masks that you feel you wear to protect yourself?
I feel like the mask I wear is that everyone should be happier than I am. Everyone comes before me.
Right. So like martyr mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to actually really work to give myself attention. That's again, self-care.
Yeah.
But it's a safe place if it's about everyone else and not me.
Yeah. If you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
I would go to northern Italy, Tuscany.
Sounds lovely. And this goes right in line with all the self-care. So what's your favorite way to take care of yourself?
Massage, bodywork. Yes, there was a time when I was getting bodywork every week and I was never sick for 2 years. I had a really good job, made a lot of money, but it taught me that is something that is very self-care preventative. It shouldn't be like, luxury. It should be, it just feeling sense of touch, therapeutic touch for sure. Massage.
If you have a bucket list, what's at the top of the list?
Travel, getting in an RV with my kids and my husband and driving all around the United States, visiting all of our friends, and then doing the same thing in Europe.
Ooh, that's a nice bucket list. And the last one, what is one book? It's often hard to pick one, but what's one book that changed your life?
Definitely, this is an easy one. A Woman's Worth by Marianne Williamson. That was my spiritual awakening moment, that book, 1993. And then I had the incredible opportunity to mentor with her for 6 months last year.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like a full circle.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that book was like the moment where I realized that I'm not just my body and it's not just all about what is physical.
Beautiful. Oh,
wow, that's great.
Time with her. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So if our listeners want to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Best way is through my website, because I have all my social contacts on there, social media contacts. It's carriejeroslow.com, just my name. And I think the best way to follow me is on Instagram, because I do a lot. Each month I have a theme. This month, I'm about to post my first one, is going to be about trust and surrender, which is really what I'm needing to learn right now. So I thought, well, I'm going to start talking about that because I need to learn that. But I talk about all different things, quotes from others and videos about them. So I love Instagram. I love the way it's laid out, but my website has all my information on it.
Fantastic. And you've been talking about the free gift for the listeners, which is, again, and we'll include all of this information in the show notes, so it's easy to find and access. But the free gift is the self-care.
Yep. It's a 9-page self-care guide. It's how to come up with a daily, maintainable, practical self-care practice. And I lead you through exactly how I did it. And again, 5 years into it, here I am, still getting on my mat. And so it's doable. It's doable. It's 5 less minutes on social media, and you can, get some self-loving instead of self-hate from social media. No, there's a lot of good things on social media.
It's like everything.
I understand what you're saying, though. So yeah, thank you so much. Again, this was such an incredible conversation. I loved having you. I know Tia did too.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do it again.
Thank you. I love that.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye.